Hello, it is Monday, December 5th, 2022. And the chart that caught my attention this past week was a chart of Sam Bankman-Fried, the young man who this past month went from being a billionaire to bankrupt. And so let's take a look at his chart and ask ourselves the question, is he a visionary or is he a master manipulator? And so if you look at his chart, you see that he is, first off, a Pisces sun, and he was born when Pisces was in opposition to Jupiter, which is the ruler of that Pisces sun. And you think about Pisces as being someone very visionary, someone who's kind of tuned in to what's going on in the zeitgeist, that sort of spiritual energy that can pick up different ideas and get flashes of insight. The problem, of course, is when you have this ability is, am I catching flashes of insight or am I catching delusions? Am I seeing a mirage or am I seeing an oasis? And so when we see Jupiter in opposition to this sun, we think, okay, there could be some question with that, especially when we look at Jupiter is in Virgo. And Virgo is the sign of its detriment, where it just doesn't function as well as it does in other signs. Jupiter likes to be big and expand, kind of go out into the world. And you think that Virgo is a sign of, very mathematical precision, charts and graphs and numbers. So when Jupiter is in Mercury's sign, it has to struggle a bit to get its vision out there from just kind of get itself out of the weeds. And so this Jupiter Virgo can also pick up certain ideas and make them very big without really knowing the soundness of the whole picture. And so you see that while Sam Bankman-Fried had this vision, he was, created this cryptocurrency exchange that did accumulate billions of dollars of worth. And he was going to become a great philanthropist and, save the world through sharing his wealth. So very wonderful Piscean vision, fueled by, this enthusiasm from Jupiter in opposition, but yet kind of an imperfect base on which to build his great vision. And so let's look at the planets, the more personal planets in the chart first. And we see that he had Mercury in Aries, and the moon, this is not a time chart, his moon would be anywhere from about 6 degrees to about 18 degrees. And so his chart then has the moon in Aries with this Mercury in Aries. And so the moon, Mercury together, very intuitive, and in Aries, very quick to pick things up. And another thing to note about this Aries moon Mercury is that it is in square to the lunar nodes. It's kind of sailed way up above the ecliptic here. And so it's kind of out there in the world to pick up inspiration. And, with Aries ruling it, it could be, something very quick, very fast, just that lightning intuition. And then also you think about a planet being at the bending of the nodes indicates that this is a planet that will experience in its life dramatic new chapters, bendings, turning from one way to the next. So that's one side of his Pisces sun. And notice that when the planets are kind of next door to each other in signs, they're in what's called aversion. And so it's almost like they're on parallel tracks that never really connect. So while he's got his vision cooking away here in Pisces, his intelligence, his mind, his intuition are all kind of working on things that aren't really bringing about that vision. And we also see that he has on the other side of his sun planets in aversion to that Pisces sun, the 3 planets in Aquarius. And Aquarius, is looking to build something. They like to be outside the box, but they like to be building their own box. Very iconoclastic and independent and forward-looking. And so he's got this big system going on over here that he's building. And notice that it's powered by this Saturn in Aquarius. This is the strongest planet by dignity in his chart because it's in its own sign. And so Saturn is in charge of that Mars, which notice is also in charge of his Aries planets, and in charge of that Venus. And so this Saturn is going to be kind of emphasize that need Sam Bankman-Fried has to build something that is his own, that is based on his own brilliance and intuition and understanding. Notice Aries and Aquarius work very well together by sextile. But notice Saturn is exactly on that Mars. I mean, almost by the minute. So we think that Saturn on Mars is like, the teacher is always in the room. You don't get by with much. So while, that Mars may kind of go off and try to do something amazing, in Aquarius, Saturn's always going to be that accountability there with Mars. And so you can see that this has certainly been true while he's had this wild ride. It's only been like for a few years that he formed his cryptocurrency exchange and has been amassing this great wealth. It didn't take long for Saturn to catch up with him. But also, if we look at the rest of his chart, we can see that he was born at kind of an interesting time in our history in 1992. This was when Uranus and Neptune were conjoined, which is a very rare conjunction and begins a whole great cycle. And this was a time in the world when the world was being linked together by the World Wide Web. These were the early years of the internet, which was, for those of us who lived through the time, it's almost like there was your life before the internet, and then there was your life after the internet. It was that world and life changing. And so his birth, picks up on that energy. And you can especially see that as the case because his Pisces sun was very tuned into it by sextile. So this is a very personal thing for him to kind of pick up on the zeitgeist, the changes and growth in the world would be something that he could tap into and work for creating his own vision. And also Pluto at that time in Scorpio was creating a trine. And you think about Pluto as the wealth building planet, among other things. And so Pluto itself was contributing to this amazing growth in the world, in sextile to that Uranus as well as Neptune, that growth of the World Wide Web and the progress it brought to our planet. But again, very personal to him, it's kind of dialed into that sun. So you think of someone who is able to build such incredible wealth with the sun Pluto trine working in his chart. And notice also Jupiter in Virgo is helped by the Capricorn planets and the Scorpio planets. But also, if you look at this Neptune-Uranus conjunction in his chart, you see that in another way, it's not doing him as many favors because it does square his Aries planets. And so remember this Aries we talked about that's above the ecliptic, at the north bending of the nodes, just really out there, just going for it. This Uranus and Neptune that he's tapping into with those energies are going to be contrary to it. They're going to be fighting with each other. And so when you think of him creating this kind of brilliant cryptocurrency exchange, what happens is the world kind of takes over and things start moving out of control, moving faster than he had planned. And so while he was building his vision, with the sun of great wealth, the tools he was using to build that great vision were under some severe challenge. And we also see with Pluto down here in Scorpio not working so well with his Aquarius planets. As he's building this great wealth, based on his vision, you see that here that accountability, that Saturn is being challenged in his chart by the square to Pluto, as well as his Mars and his Venus. And so while he was born at this Saturn-Pluto square, that in a way which indicates, there's some deep underlying problem that we have to deal with. Saturn in Aquarius, it's affecting our society in a very profound way. And so also he's kind of riding this wave of new wealth and cryptocurrency, which has not been really proven, is very untried at this point. And so his fall becomes part of that ride he's taking, which is reflecting a lot of things going on in our society right now. And so also we can kind of close the loop here by noting that Saturn has been transiting Aquarius. He had his Saturn return exactly last year. And so that was probably the time he was sensing things were going out of control and he was trying to move funds around. And notice it's just as Saturn is approaching this Venus and squaring his Pluto that the fall came, that his wealth just poof, kind of vanished overnight. And then highlighting that that Saturn in Aquarius, of course, has been Uranus in Taurus over these past couple of years. So while Uranus in Taurus has been lighting up, his sun Jupiter by sextile and trine, it's also been squaring the Aquarian planets, emphasizing the Saturn-Uranus square. So something that he's been trying to build, something kind of new and innovative, has had to, the chickens have come home to roost during this time. So he's had a particularly dramatic Saturn return when you think of Saturn being in its own sign, which makes a Saturn return even a little more powerful, but so strongly configured to Pluto, and also having that Uranus square to it around the same time. So he's had a Saturn return I'm sure he will never forget. So I would think that as time moves on, he's probably going to be entering this new cycle that we all begin after our Saturn return, when life gets very real. And so the consequences, I would imagine, are something that are going to play out for a while in his life. And let's hope by the time he gets to his next Saturn return in 29 years that he'll be sadder and wiser. And let's hope fulfilling the promise of his chart, in that creating a company that is built on integrity and that truly does serve our planet. So thank you very much for joining me. And I wish you all a wonderful star-studded week.